Normally they should make
No.
too many.
No.
Oh, really?
No. They need to have like short people chairs.
Yeah, I guess that's all we got.
I did talk to.
Mr. Burton, are you ready? I'll wait till he's done.
So we're currently, they want to go back.
No, this was.
For the reason that, with Cindy Blake is up a lot.
All right, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Planning Commission, August 5th. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the roll call. Amy?
Ms. Dobson?
Here.
Mr. Dutzman?
Here.
Mr. Earhart?
Here.
Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Aravalo?
Here.
Ms. Palm?
Here.
Mr. Sly?
Here.
Ms. Squire?
Here.
Mr. Welch?
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item is the approval agenda as it stands. I believe we have a revised version. Everybody should have that states the second item is a public hearing. So we have the agenda as it stands. We just need a motion to approve it.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, but motion's been seconded to approve the agenda. Start the voting on the left.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes 9-0. Is that right? We have everybody here. The next item is citizen participation. And this is where anybody who has signed up to speak is more than welcome to come up. And I know we have Mr. Carl Cross here that signed up to speak. Go ahead.
He actually, there's an item on the agenda.
He'd rather wait? Yep. 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 I was going to give him two opportunities, so that's fine. I was going to allow him to speak now and then if he wanted to. So, okay, we'll wait for that. So the formal formal action is, oh wait, we have another, no, that's the topic, yep. So our formal action is, the first item is the approval from our minutes from our June meeting. July was canceled, so does anybody have any issues with the minutes from June meeting? If not, we're just looking for approval of the minutes.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes from our June 3rd meeting. Start the voting on the left.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Abstain. Aye.
Motion passes 8-0-1. The next item is a public hearing for conditional use permit, CUP 28-2021, the concrete plant. And let's see, since it is a public hearing, so the process for the public hearing is that I'll open it to the public, which I'll do right now. So it's open to the public. And then I always follow the rules here. So the next thing we do is anybody on the commission here has to describe if there's any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest that we have. And go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so Concrete Materials, my employer is a subsidiary of Monarch Cement Company, so the concrete ready-mix plant that'll be going at this location is my employer, so I will see myself out the door.
All right. Sounds good. So he's gonna abstain because it's a conflict of interest. So he'll be right outside the door and we'll call Scott back in as soon as we're done with this item. The next item here is we have the staff present. So Mr. Burton, you're welcome to present when you're ready. Once he's out, yeah.
Good evening. Seems like it's been a while since I've seen you. It's probably a good thing for you, bad thing for me. So, Kind of tired tonight, so you'll have to bear with me. The Monarch Cement and Ready Mix, we looked at the site plan as a whole back several months ago and approved the site plan. The Ready Mix portion of it, or the concrete part of it, actually will not need a condition or any type of permitting except what was approved. The code actually reads cement and that part of it. So we're looking at the cement portion, which is mixed in with rock or aggregate and sand and makes concrete. So I just wanted everybody to know why we had to bring this to you. They will be moving dirt because they actually have submitted everything for the concrete portion of it, or the ready mix. So this is on the cement. It's on behalf of Monarch Cement Company. It's M1 zoned, and this would be a conditional use permit. So we looked at this as we do all as the Golden versus Overland Park. Neighborhood characteristics, which it does, it's all industrial, and the areas that, thank you, am I supposed to be doing that? Or you got it, thanks. The neighborhood area characteristics, it's already being built as industrial area. It's all zoned as industrial. Adjacent properties, obviously the proposed use is within the adjacent properties and the uses on this property. I guess that won't work. You'll just have to, thanks, Antoine. Then the sustainability for the current zoning, it's already is an M1 use, and there is and was a CUP that was issued to Nips Concrete, which is just south of their facility. I say there was because I was contacted by Nips. They've sold and they're not certain that they'll continue the use, and they want to know, what they had to do to abandon the CUP use. It's been bought by some other company that's not going to do that any longer, I guess. They made concrete casings and storm drain inlets and all. Detrimental effect, as indicated, the properties nearby are industrial, and there's some other industrial sites up there that have been sold that I'm working with. The planning commission will see in the future. We'll go to the next one there. Can I get this to work? Or? Okay, we'll just go to the next one then. So that's good. Length of time, it's been zoned M1 for many years. I actually looked this up in about 5 years. It's been zoned M1. Public gain balance to the landowner hardship. The public gain on this is, as we always say, a conditional use. So if Monarch sells it and then the next company goes and they don't manage their trees and things like that, which I don't know if you've noticed, but we have a real good, I kind of go different directions here, but we have a real good code enforcement officer, and he's been going around catching up CUPs and telling them to get their landscaping back up to snuff and things like that. So we're back on top of that, and that always falls right in line with CUPs or special uses or things.
And you're talking about the annual review?
Yes, by
Okay.
staff. Now, some of them, obviously, this will be an annual review by staff because of the way it falls in our metrics. And that is one thing, while you bring that up, that's one thing that we'll look at in the comp plan is this metric and all, and make sure that we're keeping in control of all that. Conform with the comprehensive plan, it does. Future land use, as you can see on, that it conforms with the future land use. So the rest of these fall right back into the same questioning for that we just went through under Golden. There is no hardship that the applicant can talk about right now. you know, this is a conditional use that has to be for the type of use that he's asked for. And then that it does not correct any errors, so there's no errors being corrected by this conditional use permit. The planning commission, approval of it to the governing body, deny it to the governing body, and let the applicant know such action. Table it and notify the applicant of such an action. Staff recommends approval of CUP 28-2021. And with that, I would be more than happy, with the conditions that are outlaid in this CUP.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I don't see any mention, but, I mean, in what we approved a few months ago, it talked about the surface area around the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Yes.
that still continue, or?
Yes, everything in the site plan has to meet the site plan requirement, yes.
And I think
And we
that
just
this-
received some information from them for the building permit, so we'll start reviewing the building permit and the site plan requirements at the same time to make sure that they've adjusted their site plan to meet it. Yes, that is correct.
And to reiterate Rodolfo's question is, it used to be, we had the CUPs had to be renewed every 5 years, right?
That's correct.
But now they do an redone and approved every 5 years, but now they do an annual review, and so that's what,
Staff does.
they're gonna review all make sure the site plans, within those guidelines.
So, and that, I was talking about the new code enforcement officer, and that's one of the things, to give an example, I don't want to throw anybody to the bus, but the storage areas are notorious for not keeping, a tree dies, they don't plant one back. And that's one of the areas that we're looking at. Fencing around dumpsters, things of that nature. Signs, actually, he's got a couple of signs. He's good. I like him.
Very good.
If you haven't met him, we'll get him in here. One is Brandon, and he actually is still a certified police officer. So it works out good. Any other
Excellent.
questions?
Excellent question. Any other question?
Okay. Anything for the applicant?
Yeah, is there any,
Do you have any questions for the applicant? Okay,
anyone have
thank
any
you.
questions? If not, then the applicant's always welcome to come up if he wants to. Not sure if it's necessary. If nobody has any questions. So at this point, we're really just looking for a recommendation if there's no further questions.
Move that we recommend approval for the CUP 28-2021.
Mr.
Chairman, you
Yes.
need to close.
Oh, yeah, I need to close it to the public, sorry. That was my fault. Sorry, so it's closed to the public, and then we're supposed to deliberate amongst ourselves, but I think we already did that, so I think we can go ahead and make a motion now.
I would recommend approval of the CUP 28-2021.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the CUP 28-2021 as presented by staff. Start the voting on the left.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 8-0. Let's see, the next item on our agenda is we wait for Scott to get back.
Who unlocked the door?
Should we start roll?
Thank you.
Right now? Boo.
All right, the next item is a preliminary plat application 31-2021 Brookwood Farms. We do have, maybe I should let him speak first. Carl Cross has signed up to speak. He wrote a nice letter to the mayor and the city council, and we have the letter too on our board. So can we bring him a microphone maybe?
Right up here.
Yep. so he can get him sit down.
It's okay, we'll just get you a chair and
Yeah, you can sit comfortably.
There you go. You're welcome.
Good evening. My name's Carl Kraus. You have my address in Olathe. I own a property on 207th Street, 193280, West 207th Street. The north boundary of my property is the southern boundary of what is now Brookwood Farms subdivision. Initially, the preliminary plat was in the name of Biltmore Farms. Somewhere along the line, they've changed the name, but it's the same property. You have my letter. I think it's in the best interest of Spring Hill that these subdivisions be interconnected. They initially filed a preliminary plat prepared by Phelps Engineering, which showed 3 roads stubbing into my north property line. Relying upon that, we have been marketing my property for development, representing to the buyers that there would be 3 roads stubbed into my north property line. We now have a very reputable high-end developer, Tom French, interested in doing due diligence on my property. He is very concerned on access to 199th Street. If we don't have access to the north, I think the probability of him buying my property reduces significantly. The developers of Brookwood Farms rather, bought the property to the west, and they apparently recognized the need to interconnect their properties. Initially, they had only one roadway going to the west from their subdivision into the vacant land on the west. They've now acquired that property and are developing that as a separate subdivision, but in this modified final plat, preliminary plat, they've added a second street connecting the 2 properties, which recognizes the need to have these developments interconnected. At the same time, they're trying to convert 2 of the 3 streets to dead end of my property into cul-de-sacs, basically isolating their property from my property, denying people in my subdivision on my property from going north to 199th Street, denying people in their property from coming south across my property to 207th Street. I don't believe that's in the best interest of Spring Hill. Additionally, if you convert these 2 streets into cul-de-sacs, you're creating a very serious jeopardy of life and limb to residents in Brookwood Farms. If they have a 911 call, and if my property has been developed, the ambulance and fire engines will come from the fire station on 207th Street. They'll come straight down 207th Street. If they can come through my property, they'll keep coming west on east on 207th Street to my property, come north through my property approximately half a mile. It's approximately half a mile from Woodland and 207th to the east side of my property. That would be a distance of approximately 1 mile from the Woodland 207th Street interchange to get an ambulance or fire truck into Brookwood Farms. If we don't have access across my property, and that 911 call came in, that ambulance and those fire trucks would have to go north on Woodland approximately 1 mile, go up the access ramp on 199th Street, go east on 199th Street approximately half a mile, go south cross Brookwood Farms toward my property, a distance of over 2 miles. So they're increasing their travel distance over a mile, which realistically would increase response time at least 2 minutes. If you're dealing with a heart attack, a stroke, or a fire, 2 minutes can be the difference between life and death. This is a condition that will, once it's built, will be there forever, because these cul-de-sacs are never going to be pulled out. They're never going to be converted into something else. This is something you have to deal with today, or it's going to be there forever. I submit that's not in the best interest of Spring Hill. It's not in the best interest of the residents of Brookwood Farms. So I think they should deny the revised preliminary plat as filed with the city, and require that those streets be stubbed into my property line. I have no problem with the additional street going to the west, because that's in furtherance of interconnecting the properties. The initial preliminary plat for this property was prepared by Phelps Engineering, and they showed these 3 streets dead into my property line. To my knowledge, Phelps Engineering has done substantially all of the engineering on Brookwood Farms, if not all of it, up until a recent date. Phelps Engineering has done all the engineering, I believe, on the new property to the west that is being developed by the same developers, and they've added that additional street-making connection. Phelps Engineering would be the logical people to prepare and file a modified preliminary site plan. However, Phelps Engineering did not file this. This has been filed by a Lee Summit engineering firm. Why, I have no idea, but Phelps is not on there. I request that you deny this request, that you condition them, they put those streets in stubbed into my property line, and I'm perfectly willing to approve any plat that does that. Thank you. I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. Does anyone have any questions after going through that? We may have some later for you too,
That's fine.
if we can't think of any right now. Let's see, so now, let's see, Mr. Burton, you have the floor if you want to.
All right, so this is a preliminary plat of, revised preliminary plat of Brookwood Farms. So if you recall, the developer had submitted a final plat and asked that he'd asked to put in the cul-de-sac, and staff decided it was quite a change and brought it to the planning commission for just a preliminary look. At that time, we did not receive any comments from the commission on that it would not work like this. Since then, if you look at the preliminary plat then, Phelps Engineering, who is doing the subdivision, which happens to be Woodland Crossings, and it's not owned by the same developer, but Woodland Crossings, and in exchange for the cul-de-sac, Phelps Engineering felt like that it'd be best to tie in that, as you see there, this thing ought to work. Do we have that little pointer thing? Is this it?
There's nothing. This is
I know, I want to point.
You want
Anyway.
the red dot.
As you see at the bottom of the screen there, that stub street, and that heads to the west. And that's tying into Woodland Crossings. And it's the next phase that they're working on right now. They went to Chase Development, and Brookwood Farms and said, they came to us and I said, that's a good compromise right there on being able to connect that in. We had looked at this, and I canvassed quite a few people in the area. And also I talked to a developer that had been talking about, Mr. Kraus' property there. And obviously the far cul-de-sac at the top, is $1 million bridge. And so the next one we looked at with turning and going down through there, if people are gonna continue to go through that short area and turn and back to the main drag out of Brookwood Farms, we felt it best to cul-de-sac that, make the one that they're looking at now the connection and keep it, and then also tie in Woodland Crossings. Because Woodland Road is a major arterial. 207th is a collector, and then 199th is a arterial. So really, Woodland and 199th are going to be your connecting arterial links. We've had this discussion. I know you drive Woodland, and Cindy brought it up. You drive Woodland, it doesn't look like anything right now, but it's gonna always be slated as a major arterial. That's why we're trying to be really careful with entrance in and off of there. So, we had looked at this. One of the compromises was to connect that in. 207th, it's under the CARS project for 24, I believe, 2024, to do improvements to 207th and Woodland, start the improvements on those. So, and then we also have a developer, which is just east of Carl's property there, Mr. Kraus, I'm sorry. And Phelps is designing that, and we're looking at that. And what that would be what they're looking at there is when you come into Brookwood Farms, and it turns. Okay, so. Right here. Can you see this?
Yep.
This is the main entrance into Brookwood Farms. And this turns, and this is gonna be a connecting link over and up where these would tie in and this will tie in eventually to Ridgeview and then 207th. And you can see, and if you've ever driven out of Brookwood Farms, it's kind of funny looking actually. It just kind of folds off into the field and stops. So we believe, staff believes that there's no harm to this, no harm to any adjacent ownerships. The property to the east will be on the corner of 207th and Ridgeview. We're working with a preliminary plat right now that will tie Mr. Kraus's property into 207th, which he'll have an entrance on 207th, and also into Ridgeview. And possibly running some of the traffic eventually, as it develops, through that link right there. But in looking at it with three entrances into that property, and there's only one entrance into Brookwood Farms. So if someone were to start developing his property right away up against Brookwood Farms, the next thing that staff would hear is, well, you won't let me develop my property because there's only one entrance into Brookwood Farms. I mean, we've pushed it now as it is. But that's what they did back in the day when they were approving things. So we feel like that it doesn't hurt anything. And here real shortly, we are tying into Woodland Crossings. And even with the tie-in of Woodland Crossings and coming through there, I tried to do a quick calculation of what we've been kind of allowing, and maybe 70 houses before they'd have to go to 207th anyway. Because we're trying to get away from one entrance into all these subdivisions, which we have had a lot of them. We're kind of whittled down to two now, because, you know, Chris George, they've put in their other road. I don't know if anyone's seen it. So they have two entrances now into that. But Brookwood Farms and Prairie Ridge are really what's left with a single entrance. And I understand that, you know, with tying into it, you know, Mr. Kraus originally probably didn't protest anything because the assumption was that there would be three connections. With the water, the increased water restrictions and all now, you know, that was gonna be quite a bridge, so we went along with that. And then with the tie-in and the actual true development that's going on with Woodland Crossings, it's kinda like first guy in wins, you know. And we have to kind of, staff tries to balance that and look at it and say, you know, it's more important to connect right now to Woodland Crossings than it would be to connect to the south, because the south isn't developed or isn't even preliminary platted at this point. I can appreciate his comments, I really can, but we have to look at what's being developed now. And that was a trade-off, you know, you can see the original preliminary plat had no entrances going into Woodland Crossings. So we now have at least a second entrance into Brookwood Farms, and the other good thing about it is down at the south end, the more southern end, to help the Brookwood Farms people on. Everyone always wants to say EMS, but I guarantee you that they'll appreciate it more going out there and going to the grocery store and worrying about the EMS truck getting there. They'll go out to Woodland and down to 223rd and over to the grocery store. No train trucks to cross. So, if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer it, and then if you have any questions for Mr.
So if
Kraus.
Mr. Cross's property is developed, which you don't have anything right now,
That's correct.
would there be a benefit to a street going through versus a cul-de-sac? For if something was developed?
So if we did deny the preliminary, or if the planning commission denied the preliminary plat and said you have to have those other two in, not having anything with the property to the south right now, we have no idea of when we're gonna get a second entrance into Brookwood Farms. The other thing is most likely, and the developer that I talked to that had been working with Mr. Kraus on a development for it, they were going to start to the north. And one of the reasons is they want to wait for the city, and there's a lot of expense on 207th Street. There really is, because, you know, now you're going to have to make some improvements. There's going to be turn lanes, excise tax. And in doing that, and that's what I tried to calculate out, maybe 60 houses. And that's it, because you have one entrance. And that'd be through Brookwood Farms. And, you know, so 60 houses, and then they have to go to 207th, and now they've created a long road that they have to build. You know, no temporary roads any longer. We learned our lesson on that. So that's what I did. And I did sit down, and the other developer that was looking at it and sat down with staff, they're a developer builder in the community, so they understand the community well. They weren't shocked about anything. They just wanted to verify everything. So I don't like to use names because, you know. Question?
Cindy, didn't you have you had a question the last time? when about safety, I think, right? Because it was exactly what, Mr. Davis was bringing up. Before we approved the last time.
Oh, yes,
Remember
yes,
that,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
That's why I'm bringing it up, because she had a good
It's
handle
me and
on it.
the EMS trucks and fire trucks.
It is, isn't it?
It is,
No, and truthfully though, I mean,
and sidewalks.
sidewalks, yes. And just think how fast that's all gonna tie together. With sidewalks, I mean.
I mean, I think the big conversation we had last time this came up was, how can we make Brookwood Farms build, $1 million bridge for a property that isn't developed yet,
That is correct on that,
right?
yes.
We're gonna make, why would we make them go build that out? And that I know there's been plenty of situations where I've looked at it going, well, obviously if we put this over here, we're gonna need a bunch of traffic stuff done, but we can't obviously make that person, improve our roads because we may have somebody come improve the other side of the road in 2
Right.
years.
Right,
Right, so, these decisions are never easy, and obviously we have to take into account what we actually have in front of us and what's developed in front of us. And I know that we all discussed this before, and I'm not gonna speak for anybody, but, this was definitely it was the middle road for the developer and for what was around the property.
right,
Right.
and I think everyone's doing a better job of total planning to the extent that we can. And just simple fact of 2 entrances in. And we're doing that cutoff. If you remember Dayton Creek, we cut them off of having building permits until they built that bridge and had a second entrance also. If you remember, they just had stub out street there to, Lone Elm. And to be honest with you, I was trying to figure out how I made that calculation last time. And I did find it was with the fire department. And so, we shut them off. And they were shut off for 6-7 months, or 4 months anyway.
I have concerns over the comment, and this is crystal ball, but I have concerns over the comment that you made that the proposed property would not develop down to 207th. Mr. Krause's property, if and when that ever developed.
It will.
I'm just saying that
Okay,
if and when that ever
Yes.
developed, that in your head, you don't think that that would connect initially down to 207th from conversations. I kind of have a problem with,
and that's something that we'll look at if we get a true preliminary
Right,
plat in
but-
with phasing.
but I'm just saying, I have a problem with that, going back to what Roger's saying. But then, at the same token, I feel bad that maybe we didn't catch that Brookwood should have been connecting over to the other property, because I think the main thing that we don't wanna do is ever leave a piece of land that hasn't come in landlocked. I think that maybe we're not doing a good enough job cause that kinda threw me when he said that Woodland Crossing wasn't connected, but with a very limited. So maybe we, as a group, need to be looking outside the box bigger at not allowing a piece of land to get itself landlocked by proposals that are coming in, or preliminary plats or final plats.
So there was a true connection already right there. So there was no harm in it.
No, but it was just
But
one, again.
That's correct.
I'm just saying, maybe we need to really start.
Somebody doesn't know what I'm doing. Sure, or maybe they're watching me and have a question.
Pat, that's what you get for working till midnight every night.
Let me answer them, and maybe I'm on, one of those YouTube stars or something.
We'll watch it when we get home.
But, no, there was connections to it.
I understand that there was one.
Well, there was another
There was
one
two.
Oh, there
already
was?
up here.
Okay, I misunderstood
That's
what
kinda
he
in
was
the
saying
same-
then.
Pat, can
Well-
I explain the subdivision that was there? Is that right?
I misunderstood what you said. I thought you said there was only one.
No, there's 2 connections shown, but this one here will be put in with this phase. And it's already planned to be connected with the next phase of Woodland Crossings is what I'm getting at. It's an immediate connection.
Okay.
That's what I was getting at. I think the applicant wants to speak a little.
Yeah, you can come up and speak.
Thanks. So it's Matt Slish, 50 South, Engineering Solutions, 50 Southeast 30th Street, Lee Summit, Missouri. So we have been the engineer on this phase, or this development, since phase 3. So we've done the fast, everything. Phelps did the original preliminary plat, then they did the first phase, and then we've been taking care of this design since. And so originally, when this began, and I don't know if this,
How long has that been?
oh man, 6 years, 7
Okay,
years?
that's
I don't
kind
know.
of what I wanted to read.
I don't know if that helps or not. It's confusing to me to be an upside down on that thing, but let me see if we can take it out here a little bit. So if north being the upper part, you know, the top part of the page here. So we do have Skyline that made its main connection that came off and went to the east. That's always been there. That's the main thoroughfare that will eventually connect the properties to the east and eventually down to the south at 207. There were always two accesses to the west that went to the development ground that some other developers doing, where we have no part of or any piece of it.
Right.
We did have 3 connection points that were down to the south to Mr. Krause's property. The one that we brought in on the last phase and had the discussion was this southeast one. We converted that into a cul-de-sac because as you got out there, I think it was a poor choice at the preliminary plat to show that connection point, because if you go out there and see it, there is a creek line that runs down through here. The grade change from here to here is over 20 feet. And then once you get onto Mr. Krause's property, the northeast portion of his property is not developable in something that someone could utilize. So in the 6th phase, we came in and said, can we cul-de-sac that piece, because that made sense for everybody involved. No one down here is ever gonna spend the money to build that bridge. There's no reason for us to extend the road down to that point. We can cul-de-sac and have a very manageable road section. When we came in to do the 7th plat then, we do show a cul-de-sac on this corner. However, the cul-de-sac is not a permanent cul-de-sac. So the cul-de-sac feature itself will stay forever. See if we can show it. So the bulb and pieces of it can stay forever, but if you notice right down here, we left 50 feet of right-of-way. So that when Mr. Krause does develop, he can connect to that cul-de-sac bulb. He can also still connect to the south or to the west side of the other road. So he still has 2 connection points from our property onto his property. It's just our belief and discussions was that northeast connection wasn't good for us. It wasn't going to be good for him in any development piece of it. You know, so from our perspective, the only reason that this cul-de-sac is here is for this interim period to when we hope Mr. Krause's property sells and develops quickly. But if it doesn't, then we have a turnaround for emergency vehicles to come down this rather long dead-end road, to turn around and get back out. But again, there's a connection point right here that they can simply connect right through the road right away, public access. They'll build a road in. Down the road, it'll obviously appear a little odd because you'll have a cul-de-sac somewhat on a thoroughfare street. It could come out, but in reality, it's just kind of this interim period when you have to have something for emergency vehicles right now to serve and satisfy that piece. I don't mean thoroughfare, but a through street. You know, there's a through street. You know, so again, so Mr. Krause did make some comments about 911 and emergency vehicles. Like I say, our belief is that we still have 2 connection points. That cul-de-sac, we're not hindering anybody on the emergency vehicle side of it. You know, your fire department, your emergency staff has looked at this and is acceptable to it. Your third-party review staff has looked at it, acceptable to it, so we think it's a fine piece to that side of it. So essentially, this is just kind of the last phase of Brookwood, and we were trying to figure out a good way to terminate it so that future development can still occur, but then also this development can kind of end at that south line and be through a piece. So hopefully that helps to kind of clean up some of those things that were through there.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Could you
sure.
elaborate on the stormwater runoff from the detention cell in phase 3? And I'm guessing, does that drain into a lower area into the northeast corner of Mr. Krause's land, so it makes it undevelopable? I mean, is that what we're
The
going
pond,
towards? Yeah,
so the pond's been there forever.
Sure.
And it always had a drainage way that went through Mr. Krause's property.
in that northeast corner?
Yeah.
So it'd be highly unlikely you develop that anyways.
Yeah, but it wasn't related to what we did with the pond or
Sure,
the detention
sure,
side of it.
sure.
It was just, that was the natural waterway went through
Right.
there. My point of being undevelopable or rather expensive to do it
Sure.
is just the terrain down in there changes a lot of contour elevation change from our southeast, kind of where our cul-de-sac is, down to that property line. And then down through there, there's a rather large draw that goes through there.
Right.
So it's just undevelopable because you'd have to, A, manage the stormwater, and then you'd have to, B, then build up a grade enough that you can make something work in there. And so in a residential development area, it would
Right.
never pan out.
Yeah. No, that
So
makes
green space is probably its best use, similar to
Maybe
what we
tract
did at the
land, yep.
southeast corner of our site, was just develop some green space and leave it for future use or common area.
Maybe set up for a nice park system.
Yeah, there you go. Be perfect. So yeah, so I'm here for any questions. I just want to kind of clean some of the things up I was hearing that maybe were misunderstood, and especially Mr. Kraus, to make sure he understands that we're not trying to cut him off, and it was no intent in any way to do anything different on that piece of it. It's just been something as we developed. I wasn't involved, like I said, Phelps was the original in preliminary plat in that southeast corner. We could not find a way to make that connection reasonably possible for us or for him that would make any sense. So, but he still does have the two pieces on there.
That helps a lot, thanks.
Yeah.
Sure,
It does.
sure.
Can I ask you, what is the dashed line that looks like a driveway or something coming off that cul-de-sac?
With that
On the-
other picture you had.
Yeah, on the newer,
Yeah, there you
the
go.
proposed
Right
one.
Southeast one.
Yeah,
So on this one here.
yeah, what is that?
It was just an easement that we had coming
Oh,
across
okay.
there. So we have a number of utilities from sanitary sewer and stormwater that run back that
Okay.
direction. So I didn't bring that stormwater plan set with me, but there's just utilities that are running down through there. So everything on this south end became or will become common ground. So in order to give the city a public easement for it, we just had an easement that we dedicated on that piece, so.
All right, very good. We may have more questions. I'm gonna let Mr. Burton finish.
Sure, absolutely, thank you.
So I do want to make a couple of things clear on when he's talking about a temporary cul-de-sac. It is set up and we will look at that and whether we will allow a connection to that or not. Because the last thing, and something that we're looking at, and I went to some schools, so now I'm really smart, is traffic patterns through here and this part here. The city may not want that traffic pattern. And that was one of the ideas when I was just talking to the engineer about this, it's been a month ago. And, in cul-de-sacing that and keeping some right-of-way distance there, it doesn't prohibit, but it most likely will not be a tie-in unless it's something that just jogs over into a horseshoe or something where there won't be traffic just using it all the time. Because this link here obviously is gonna be the big link. It's a straight through cut right there and then right here. So I just wanted to make that clear because, well, you can tie in, well, it might not be able to. It depends on what the city engineering and staff do the calculations on. So I think it's a better plan than it was. That's all I have, sir. Sure, just push the
Yes,
button.
Mr. Kraus, you
I appreciate their concern. They seem to be making an awful lot of major economic decisions, what's gonna happen to my property without ever talking with me. Much of the disparity in ground level is because they've made large fills on their property. I haven't gone down there. I don't know how much fill they put in, but they've hauled in an awful lot of dirt. I know that. If they want to make that a cul-de-sac with access available down the road as they're proposing on that second street, where the public right-of-way is to the property line, and the street is made so we could come across there, then the developer of my property could make a decision with the city if that's what they want and if it makes economic sense. I'm told that neighboring communities, neighboring cities, will not allow cul-de-sacs to be run into the adjacent properties. But that's something the city of Spring Hill has to decide with. But I think that without talking with me, they've made an awful lot of decisions. My property was sewered, and I wrote a check up front for the sewers when they were put. I have no special assessments on my property. I'm probably one of the few property owners out there that can make that statement. I've been a supporter of the city's development from day one, and I think I'm entitled to have a reasonable access to this property to protect the economic value of my property. And I think what they're proposing here is depriving me of a very substantial property right, which the developer of my property, it will be developed. It's a question of who and when. It will be developed. There's no question about that. Chris George is to the south of us. This subdivision is to the north of us. The city owns the parkland on the west side, the entire west boundary of my property, 26.5 acres. So it's not a question of if it's going to develop, it's a question of when and by whom. And I think we ought to be entitled to be protected from being isolated from 199th Street. I would ask that you at least require this cul-de-sac be constructed in the same manner as the Second Street from the west, so that we could tie into it down the road if the developer of my property decides that economically feasible and it's agreeable with the city of Spring Hill at that time.
There's right-of-way already there, as Matt said. You can look on the preliminary plat and there's right-of-way there. We're just forcing them to put a cul-de-sac in there. Whether we call it temporary or permanent, well, that decision will have to be made in conjunction with a developer that buys his property, the traffic study, the planning commission, everything. So, I mean, it's not that they can't absolutely tie in there, but staff felt that it was best to say that this is a cul-de-sac. It may remain a cul-de-sac for another 30 years, we don't know. So, but there is right-of-way at the bottom of that where city right-of-way, where improvements there and tie in.
Is it dedicated street right-of-way?
It's public right-of-way, right there.
In what I've seen, I can't determine that.
Yeah, it's public right-of-way, and Matt can verify it, that is public.
For street purposes or utility purposes?
Well, right-of-way is for street purposes. Utilities, we typically force them in easements.
So you're saying that there is a dedicated right-of-way to my property line?
40-foot strip? 50-foot strip,
So even if this is constructed as a cul-de-sac,
yes.
when my property is developed, if they want to tie into it,
No, I won't commit to that.
you cut me off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If they want to tie into that, there is right-of-way there. If they can work with the city, and if the city's agreeable to it, they can construct a road through there.
Yes, they can connect. That is correct. So it doesn't cut everything off, but in staff writing the report did not want to say that this could be a through street. Because we have to look at all of it. Well, here's one of the problems that I looked at, maybe it's just too much futuristic. We say, okay, you have to have two entrances into a subdivision now. And the developer comes in and he extends both those streets down and he puts 80 to 100 homes right there. That, to me, yes, it meets the two entrance requirement, but you're still trying to get there from the same area up top. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's why we were careful in writing that it is right now classified as a cul-de-sac to us. There's connectionable right-of-way there, but it's classified as a cul-de-sac.
So what you're saying is, even if futuristic, we said we have to have two, we couldn't really consider those the two? We would probably need other entrances into that?
Oh,
onto his
yes,
property?
yes.
Well,
From like 207.
You're wanting one off of, at least one off of 207.
That's correct.
Right, so we would, even if those weren't there, you still have to put in other entrances anyway.
That's correct.
Roger, you said if neither one, did you say neither one or?
Well, either way, but
Either,
yes.
okay.
Right, yeah.
Could this be designated as a temporary cul-de-sac
It's up to the planning commission, but I repeat what I said. Staff did not want to put that as a temporary cul-de-sac and then a developer come in and, I mean, we're willing to work with them for a connection, okay? But we don't want this to be construed as the two entrances into a subdivision and then just start building your way to 207th and you've built the whole thing and then you connect 207th.
Well, you're assuming my property's gonna develop from the north-south instead of starting from 207th Street.
That's correct, and the only reason, I didn't even think about that until the major developer that you and I wanted to make sure that he had talked to you about it, and that's how they were gonna do it. That it spoke with you. I don't wanna bring their name up.
That's fine.
They were
Okay.
gonna start from the north?
Yep.
All right,
Think,
Wouldn't that create an undue burden on the existing subdivision though, having all that construction equipment running through there? If you start from the north and don't come from an actual road, I mean, an arterial?
Sure.
Yep.
But in that case, we are, and we have said that this is a connector anyway. This one here is. I'm sorry, so everyone can see. So if they did start the north, I mean, staff would look at it and obviously try and control everything, but we wouldn't stop them from starting from the north. If they wanted to put in, like I said, that magic number may be 40, it may be 60. Could be 20.
you don't.
That's
know.
correct.
you don't know.
Especially with, fire codes changing and things like that. Because a lot of the EMS and fire, they do play a big role in that. So that's what we felt like it'd be best to have a cul-de-sac there for right now. And there's like 50 foot, like Matt said, of usable right of way where they could tie into it. And it may be a case where a developer comes in and says, hey, I'm coming in with major road from 207th, we're gonna branch off, I wanna immediately tie those two in. I don't see any problem with that, and then we would leave it up to planning commission to look at that.
And I may be speaking out of turn, but especially if it was coming in the next 24 months or less.
Oh, correct, yes, definitely.
Versus, because I
Years.
believe Mr. Kraus
Or-
is correct.
It
It's
will.
not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Oh, we've,
But if market changed and it was 10 years, it could make a different scenario or a different discussion pattern.
that's correct. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe those sewers have been in 20 years now.
I don't think it's quite that long, probably 12 years.
Okay,
In a
so,
while.
it's been a while anyway.
It's been a while,
So, it's, not-
but they've been fully paid up front too, so
Oh.
the city wasn't financing them for me.
No, and thank you, and yes, we do thank you for that and know that. So, and he is correct, he's one of the few that did write the check up front, so. And we're not trying to put any burden, and we'll work with developers on there, but, and I've spoke to several developers, listened to them, didn't make any decisions, they just wanted to know. Most of it comes down to, excise tax and stuff like that. I mean, honestly, we sit down and we go through it all and
And what can be developed.
what
on that
roads,
property.
right, and what roads need improvement and all that. So,
My guess I'm simply a guess. My guess is that that's gonna develop faster than later.
I would think so,
Economic goals.
because actually, and I keep saying this, we are still working on these park plans. And there's a large park area adjoins this on the east, and it runs clear up through there. And that was, if you remember, that was one of the points that we brought up when, in cul-de-sacing this one, is that it eventually something will tie to that park, there's no doubt. We will definitely work towards that for sure.
All right,
Any other questions?
do you have any other comments or anything else to?
No,
And Mr.
thank you.
Kraus, we thank you for your comments in your letter and bringing.
Thank
that to
you,
our
Your Honor.
attention. And we also appreciate you coming here today. And do we have any further questions for the applicant, or does the applicant have any further comments? So I'm gonna ask the commissioners, do they have any other questions for Mr. Burton or Mr. Schlitz?
I mean, having looked at it and stuff, I don't see that there would be a issue with designating that as a temporary cul-de-sac. Because a temporary cul-de-sac could be temporary forever. It doesn't have to be tied into if that's what the city doesn't want it tied into.
Yeah, what are the implications if it was a temporary cul-de-sac to Troy's question?
Sure. So the implications that we looked at along with engineering is that if we specify that as a temporary, then that does give them the right to tie in. So let's take a scenario that they decide not to tie into this one, but they'll just tie into that one.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Because you really have
Not a
to
thing
tie
we
into
can
the
do,
main one
because it's
there.
temporary. And so,
Why would you, where would you see a scenario where it would make sense for them to tie into that one instead of the other one? That's already a stubbed out road.
that's flipping a coin.
Okay.
Well, it could be to get them closer to, back up to park ground. Cause we know the drainage is gonna be park ground, and it'll tie into the other. I mean, we saw it at Dayton Creek. They
For
developed-
safety and everything, it's better to tie into that road right
Sure,
there
and,
first.
and I'm not,
Wouldn't this
most,
come before us and get approved though, as a preliminary plat? Even if
Yeah,
it's
it would.
temporary?
it would, and there's no doubt about it. But, I mean, I know that we still have to have some rule or some reason to turn it down. And we can't just say, oh, you can't tie in there right now. Let's say they really do want to just tie in here.
Mhm.
And under a preliminary plat, and they have a phase like this, okay? You have no rule that says that you can stop that. It's not, on preliminary plats and final plats, it's not just like a site plan or a planned development, where the planning commission can say, no, we want more trees, no, we want wider streets and things of that nature. It is strictly that, we're not saying that it'll never be tied into, because there is road right-of-way there. And it's built to a design standard that can be easily connected to.
Well, to follow up with what Troy's saying, can you not say temporary cul-de-sac only if, I don't know the name of the other road,
That one's developed first.
is that one's developed first?
I think instead of, I wouldn't complicate it a lot for the next person, 'cause I won't be here forever. And,
I understand.
but you see what I'm
that,
saying, just, if
gives
you want it
us
temporary, we'll make it temporary. If
It
you
just
don't
gives
want
us
it
more
temporary,
control.
we won't.
By not doing temporary, it gives
Yes.
us more control of what goes in there.
Because we've all had to do things here that we didn't want to do because of things like this, that weren't done correctly up
That's-
front.
Yeah, yeah.
And we didn't like what came out of it,
And I think that it still protects Mr. Kraus's property to an extent.
yeah.
And if Mr. Kraus is happy with the right of way there, and like I said, we're not saying that it can't be tied onto, it's just we don't want to have that the first phase.
Well, and we don't know what their preliminary plat's gonna look like.
Have
so
no
we can't-
idea.
We
Right.
can't say, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's gonna be great, and everything's gonna go through, and then they bring a preliminary plat to us that just isn't gonna work. And now we have a temporary right of way
That's right.
and with something that we didn't want in the first place.
And
so.
they may horseshoe up against that and like that not being a through street.
Okay.
I know it's,
I think it's best if we just leave it the way the staff has recommended.
Yep.
All right, I think applicant's done, Mr. Burton's
We're done.
done.
Staff's.
We just,
Mr. Kraus, you can.
if there's no further questions, do you have any other comments, Mr. Kraus?
I have not seen a plat where I can determine that there is in fact an easement there. And I would like to see a plat in large enough scope that I can.
Is that possible to give Mr. Kraus that, Mr. Burton? Where he can see it?
Yeah, it shows it. Front, back.
And if you don't have it today, make sure he gets it.
It's right here.
Okay.
We're going to the final plat next.
Oh, okay,
You can
gotcha.
see the modified design there.
As I read this, the cul-de-sac termination will actually reach my property line, is that correct?
Right of way, that, you're looking at right of way. But yes, that is the right of way
the right
that
of-
terminates there. The asphalt won't come that far. But your right of way does. This is right of way. And then in between there will be the street and cul-de-sac.
So this is public dedicated right-of-way up to my property line,
Yes, just like Matt said.
okay.
Okay, I think, we're done deliberating here, so I think we're just looking for a motion at this point. Or you don't have any other comments, right, Mr. Kraus?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to recommend approval for preliminary plat application 35-2021 for Brookwood Farm subdivision.
Second.
Okay, we have motions been seconded to approve the preliminary plat 31-2021 Brookwood Farms as presented by staff. Start the vote on the left.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 9-0. See, the next item is the final plat application, 25-2021 Brookwood Farms. Mr. Burton, you have the floor.
Thank you. Brookwood Farms Plat 7, well, that came on. Catch investment, 10.5 acres, 31 lots, R1 single family. The preliminary plat was just approved by the planning commission on a few changes for the road design and layout. Then, the first preliminary plat was in 2007, then revised in 14, and now revised right now as of that motion prior to us looking at this. The staff comments on the 31 lots in the seventh plat was to install sidewalks on 199th Street as indicated on a preliminary plat, and that is completed. Now, there is a section on the east side of their entrance that we did not install, or I say we, the developer did not install by direction of city staff. The reason for that is the owner next door there came out and, and said, well, he didn't want encouragement to walk going east across his property. And, it was 20 foot of sidewalk that went east and dead ended, because then we come on to county. So we just told the developer, well, the concrete guy that was there, not to put that in. So, but all the rest of it is put in, and it will be connecting to Woodland, come down around and connect in. So we're starting to link all the sidewalks together. The plans are approved, engineer cross-section streets by the engineering. I don't think there's anything left on the plans, is there, Matt? Okay. We verified the taxes are paid. Drainage area is subject to the homeowners association. They do a good job. The homeowners association up there does a good job right now keeping everything maintained. Police and fire, the construction refuge, the silt fencing or erosion control. So they do not participate, so in the parks program,
So they do have to pay, they are subject to the $300 per lot park impact fee, and that's collected at issuance of building permit. They'll still have an improvement agreement. I have not drafted that yet, I will though, and they have to pay excise tax. So, staff recommends approval of the final plat, Brookwood Farms, Plat 25-2020. If there are any questions,
There's a,
or 2021,
there's
thank
a,
you.
there's a word you should cross off under the staff comment. It says the staff finds the final plat not to be in compliance. I think you want to cross out not.
Oh, okay. Which one is that?
It's right under staff comment before all your list.
Oh, okay.
I was reading.
Sorry
I
about
just
that.
don't want that in the,
No. So we'll,
I want to cross that off.
sorry about that. I
No, that's,
get
I'm
lost.
just trying to get.
Actually, because we were bringing the other plat and I just
No.
took in this and changed it, the staff report.
No, it's,
Actually, I had a lot of help from,
Mrs. Healy would be proud of you.
is that a teacher?
No, Mrs. Healy was the planning commissioner that was on here for 30 years, and she did all the minutes by shorthand years ago.
my.
So she was very meticulous.
Yes. Some days I need her.
well, thank you, Mr. Burton.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions for Mr. Burton at all? If not, I think we're just looking for a motion on this at this point.
Move to recommend approval of plat 000025-21, final plat Brookwood Farms, 7th plat, subject to staff.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been seconded to approve the final plat application 25-2021 Brookwood Farms as presented by staff. Start the voting on the left. Adolfo?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion passes 9-0. Thank you, Mr. Kraus. The next item we have is reports, and I didn't get to review all that you sent out, Pat. 7 pages of stuff.
Sure.
The comprehensive plan scope.
Right, so this is what I kept telling, I guess I can take it off. I kept telling everyone that I'd written and then I'd forget to get it out, and I know people were like, yeah, sure you did. But, so I'd gone through this exercise, with here and another jurisdiction, so I think I've covered everything. What I was trying to be real careful on is I left everything as would be, most everything as be completed with us and a consultant. So as you read through there and you say, oh, wait a minute, we were gonna do that, it probably so, but I wrote it as a consultant was gonna help on everything. And that's why I wanted everyone to read through it, see if I missed much. I'm sure I missed something. And then we can get going and we can get the RFP out on what we thought we would like to see. And it's an ever-changing atmosphere or an ever-changing landscape here. Quickly on development that's coming in, development that's trying to be proposed. We're took a lift station that we're getting ready to build and had to put it deeper because somebody's gonna develop something across the road from it and had not really planned on sewering that piece with this lift station. So it's changing very rapidly. A lot of industry now coming around and working with them and stuff. So, but what we want to do is stay with the focus that we had talked about in protecting the different areas. And that's what the main objective of our discussions had been, is having those corridor areas. What I'm saying is we probably ought to do it before it's too late, we think now more futuristic, out there farther. A perfect example is us annexing all the way to 175th Street, although we're still in a suit by that, but we did it. And, you know, so we are looking farther in the future and setting up things better, I think. So in saying that, I would like you guys to see what the most important part you would like to work on right away. Is it the corridor studies? And in conjunction, go ahead.
Who is Shockey Consulting?
Shockey Consulting?
Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm, could be, I don't know, where's it at?
I just didn't know where, I mean, I don't recognize having worked with that consulting firm before.
Oh, no, you haven't. I have,
Okay.
another jurisdiction. So it's the same thing with CFS, engineering and all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and then
Right.
you read my
And-
mind.
Okay, and that's what I was trying to say, is a lot of this you're gonna read and you're gonna look at these, that it's, says consultants in there and this and that. It's because I wrote it in conjunction with another jurisdiction that's already using those people.
But
This,
they
it'll be an
potentially could be.
Well, we could be, but an RFP needs to go out, obviously. So that's what I was getting at there. So when you see those items, you don't have to worry about that, no one's been hired. But I'd still like to, if it's, I was gonna say also, we started really looking at South Webster again to 223rd. The straightening of it, or whatever the case is gonna be. I really, in looking at what they'd proposed originally, I think there could be a better design. I don't know, you know, that's something we're looking at, but we're getting some stuff on paper now, so I can get it here to you guys and hopefully get going on it. Cause Miami County's been really, really good to us about, you know, helping financially, and then, you know, we have good discussions now on the overall project. And with this infrastructure bill coming in, you know, I don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse, but, you know, maybe there'll be some more funding. You know, we did, under discussions, I was gonna tell you anyway, you know, the city was, I don't know how you say that, awarded, given 1.1 million under the act. We received half of that already. We placed it in a separate bank account. And the good thing is, I think we have 3 years, 2 or 3 years to use it. So we're gonna use it wisely.
Yeah. Yep, not on attorney fees, right?
That is correct, no. I mean, you guys know that, that
No
I'm
pun
filling
intended.
in for a while until they can find somebody, and, I'm super conservative.
But didn't we talk about Webster connecting over there by the bank and then doing a
Right.
roundabout by the
Yeah,
bank?
and, you know what, I just looked at that and I don't know, I think there should be a better way. And, you know, going down Price Chopper Lane, you know, that's private, we'll have to turn into public and on, so.
I think it was just conceptual too, just something
It-
that was put to paper and
It is,
it could look
but-
like this, but
right, so the conservative nature of myself is why waste the time?
so.
Let's have a couple of plans and, you know, look at it and see how it goes.
Pat, on the RFP, is there any language in there in terms of scheduling and timeline? when
Not
we want
yet.
This? Okay,
No, and that's what we'll have to work on.
okay.
Actually, I have a whole amendment that I wrote, and it's based on the other jurisdiction on a timeline.
Because I know when we get RFPs, you know, it's always what's their budget and what's their schedule.
Right, and so
That's the big-
one of the problems or in thinking is, let's say we say this has to be completed in 60 days. It might eliminate some good applicant or people that might.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
You know, I mean, you're very well
In my
aware.
head, I'm thinking like,
Sure.
we'd like this done by fall of 2022 or something.
Right,
I mean-
and so that would be something that, after we figure out what we want, then I will lean on you guys to tell me a time frame, because I know that when you're reading in this, with CFS and all, you know, they're talking about a whole year to do it, and
This is not gonna be
Yeah, I mean, they
60 or
take
90
time.
days.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the engagements, I mean, I think like what you have outlined is going down like what we want to do. I mean, with all the public engagement and everything.
Yeah, cause you still have to work out your stakeholders and all of that. That alone will take time.
come on. Have faith.
I've worked on a couple of these.
No, I
I'm all about
understand.
expediting it.
Everything. Well, and everything, I mean, you're exactly right, you know, well, just one thing on this other one that we went and, scheduled, and it happened to be some school board bond issue, something the same night, so that didn't work too well. So those are things we'll have to think about.
Headed into
Well, and
holiday
you were,
season
you were.
Oh,
asking
yeah,
us-
we're not gonna even make it. I mean, what my goal, I'm sorry, Chairman, just say-
No, go ahead.
okay. My goal would be is to have this all worked out, time frame, and say, okay, we'll get it, RFP it out, January. You know, we can do it before then, but it would be tight, you know.
And I think you're looking for feedback from us.
If
Like
you
what,
would,
what would be the preference to work on first, right? You said the corridor study or some
If,
other thing.
well, that's what I gathered when we were talking to everybody, you know, corridor study to, or a corridor area that we could look at maybe ourselves and say, you know, we don't need a consultant to tell us what we would like to see in this area. You know,
Right.
I mean, the consultant's gonna be more looking at it, at least on some of this is, you know, are we meeting state statutes? Are we thinking about the proper infrastructure? You know, I mean, things like that. I've started gathering information already on water lines, locations, you know, sewer's pretty easy, it's on Ames, it just pops right up. Electric, I'm working with the electric company, Evergy, right now on a manufacturer, so while I'm there in that area, I'm getting all the information, you know, what they can handle and all. Atmos and Kansas Gas, and so I'm trying to get some stuff together while I'm there, just do it now, and then it'll help us.
does September and October look stacked for the planning commission agenda? Are you thinking that we just
No,
talk about this
but-
during those meetings? Or
No,
add
but
one?
I'll, truthfully, it's stacked because of budget for me.
Are you looking for feedback, us to email you feedback or? what's the
However
best
you,
route?
well, that would probably be best. If you would email or drop it off, we'll compile it, send it out, everybody can see what everybody else said, and we'll make sure we put your names in bold print. No. Just the general comments and all, and then, you know, we can go from there. I'm just gonna need some really good guidance on this, because I'm not going to be able, on the RFP part of it, to just 100% concentrate on it. So,
Do you have this in printed version?
I believe so. Well, we should somewhere. Here or the other jurisdiction, I'll get it to you. That's a good idea, and that way you can just strike through or whatever you wanna do. I think, what do we send it out, PDF? Is that how I gave it to you?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, we need it in a Word document,
Yeah, that's what
right?
Mary was.
Right.
Mrs. Dobson, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got it in. I already, I just did it myself.
See, you changed it. The chairman will send it out. All right, that's really all I had. You know, the, site plan and the final plat was approved at the June 24th for site plan for Woodland Crossings Pool and Cabana, Foxwood Ranch 3, final plat. No, you ask if we have a lot on the agenda coming up on Plan Commission. We do have quite a bit. It kind of depends on how a couple of these manufacturers fall. I mean, we already have all the plans and some approvals and this and that, trying to stay ahead of everything. You know, we may have wasted time, but I'd rather do that than be behind all the time, so. So it looks like it's not jam-packed, no.
I just didn't know what your thoughts were, whether you wanted planning commission meeting time, if you wanted to come do an hour early, if you were thinking about adding a meeting.
Whatever you guys wanna do, you're the bosses.
I think that's.
We'll make it work, whatever you guys wanna do.
Him.
I mean, if you
Come in
could-
an hour early, maybe the next one, if it's not
Sure.
packed, and I can bring in a big old plan and trace, and we can sketch over areas of we really wanna emphasize on.
Okay, perfect. I probably still have some of your sketch paper.
Yeah, right. You haven't used that yet?
Would that work for everybody? Come in at 6 instead of 7?
Sure.
Like on September, is that right after the holiday?
I think it's right before the holiday.
Yes.
Is it right
Thursday
before?
before the
Well,
holiday.
why don't we change that? We'll go
When's our next meeting? Does anybody have the
I think it's
calendar?
like September 3rd.
third, I think it is, isn't it?
September 2nd.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's right before
You sure?
Labor Day week.
Labor Day weekend's
Labor
the
Day's
That was the
6th.
third.
5th.
No, it's September 2nd, sorry.
September 2nd, so
Uh,
I thought it was the third.
That's okay.
Meet before the holiday.
Your wife's starting a new school. She's not gonna be taken off of it.
Well, I might be taking off the kids.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's up to you guys. We could meet on the 7th if you want.
The week later would be
That'd be a
better.
Tuesday on the 7th, or, it doesn't matter,
Oh, okay, yeah, I
you
mean,
know, or we can,
depends on everybody's,
hour long enough.
or we could go into
well,
the 16th, maybe, well,
I mean, for the first one, we can try an hour, and then maybe an hour
don't worry.
before the next.
if we're gonna meet an hour early, I don't wanna, for me personally, I don't wanna do it September 2nd because I, my
No.
work schedule.
I would almost agree on that just because of everything here. You know, we'd be short-staffed and,
You wanna meet the week after?
We can meet the week after and we can decide.
well, that would have to be on a Tuesday because
Yeah.
council,
This
right.
council would.
Is that okay?
Well,
So
or we
then we could meet on the 16th, which is not a council day.
But you could also, if the cafeteria's not, we could do tables in there and spread.
Yeah, but I can't be there.
Well, see, I don't have.
I have to do council.
Man,
Oh, man.
See where the
I
calendar
guess council trumps us for you, huh?
I can ask him. He says yes. By the way, I wanted to say before we go, I mean, Mr. Owen, he puts in a lot of time on coming to all these meetings and all, and we do appreciate it because, you know, with, sometimes listening and then a council member will ask and he knows what the discussion was, so we do appreciate that. And then also staff here lately has just been great. I couldn't do it without all these guys.
Well, Cindy was saying that we would, need to find stakeholders. I think, Mr. Owen would be a perfect stakeholder for all of our conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he appreciates that.
He doesn't have anything coming up that he's working.
No, not at all.
What's the rate?
So I think the right answer is no comment, right?
Do you have any updates on some of the things that have been approved, where we're at with?
Right, so I'm sure I can go through them, Quick Trip.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Let's try to-
Oh, let's do the date.
Yeah, let's try to
Oh.
figure out when the.
I thought I had that figured out for you guys.
Oh, so you do that Tuesday afterwards?
Well, it's right after,
Oh,
is
we
that
could do
after
it the
Memorial Day?
16th.
Let's do it the 16th.
16th,
16th is a good date.
or the week of that.
What time on the 16th?
My schedule's
Depends
gonna
on
wait
your
until I
schedule,
know
too, John.
sports
Well, I mean,
schedule at high school, sorry.
6 o'clock.
Or Woodland Springs.
6 o'clock, is that what you want?
I mean,
So let's shoot for the 16th, 6 o'clock,
Okay,
and start emailing if you get home and something goes wrong or you don't, you know. Is that,
Don't email each other.
no, don't, you always email Amy, please. Yeah,
Bring your
please.
big, hairy, audacious goals, like your visions, ideas, thoughts. So we're not just staring at a blank piece of paper, because I do
Right.
a lot of these, and a lot of times we end up staring at paper for 15 minutes. So,
yeah.
And I will have all the information I can dig up that I can think of, you know, I mean, you say, well, where's that water line, or whose water district is it, and blah, 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 so. Okay, so is 16th okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Highlighters of different colors and markers of different colors would be helpful, probably.
yeah.
Sure,
I'll bring
it's not in the
my-
budget, but you guys have a budget, so we'll take it out of yours. Yes, ma'am.
I was just curious if you could update us what's happening in the city.
Sure. So, Monarch Concrete, you'll see they're going to start immediately with dirt under a land disturbance permit. So you'll see dirt moving up there, even more dirt moving up there at 183rd. Coming down from there, we have the indoor storage for Jason Mitchell, isn't it Mitchell? That the site plan was approved, plat and all. It's starting now. We will take the plat this next council meeting. We held the plat by his request for the excise tax, you know, and it is a lot of money, you know, so people get everything together and so that's good. He's going on with that. We have several plats in that will be the next phases of everything. Dayton Creek, for an example. Let's see, then coming on down. Well, if you're interested in clear up 175th, the judge did grant another stay on us. We won the case. The stay was released. We annexed the property. And then a couple of days ago, they put another stay on us. The jurisdiction, Judge Mason did. So, you know, we're working on that. Either go.
Protest period or something?
That's correct, but it's probably going to force us to an appellate court, which we would just as soon go to, you know, straight to the Supreme Court. So we'll see how that goes. So that stifled Project Extract again, which we were really hopeful to get really moving on that. Then we come on down, the church there on the west side, we're working with them to extend sewers up there. And that would come from the lift station that's on the east side of the highway, right before 199th Street. So we'll do a highway crossing there. We have the design for the lift station in the Quick Trip area. We had it, and in discussion with the property across the street by the golf course that has a for sale sign on it. That trust is now very interested in selling or developing. So we we made it deeper to accommodate it. And then, of course, the property to the north, we then had to, across from Quick Trip to the north, over 199th, all that property there, it was our assumption that it would flow to the lift station that's right down there. Or there's a creek right on this side and we would end up going through the creek. It's not deep enough, the bottom line. So we went over to Quick Trip and deepened that again so that we can serve all these properties. So by doing that, we actually serve now a lot more of the apartment area through that lift station. So it might be a good thing, you know, that it all just kind of. Quick Trip was going to start this month. I did receive an email from them. They're feeling the hardship of material costs and all now also. It's like any business, you know, you have a number, and if that exceeds that number, you can't make what you need to make. So I'll meet with them this next week and see what we can do to help them, you know, get going a little far. I mean, you know, a lot of people, you know, and I've had the comment, well, it's Quick Trip, they have all kinds of money, you know. It's still a business model. You know, businesses don't do things not to make money. So I'll work with them next week, but I'm very positive that we'll get something worked out and get going on it.
Yeah, because my daughter wants those churritos, so you better.
Yes, I'm telling you, everybody, you would not believe that everybody stops you. When's Quick Trip started? When do they start? I'm like, who cares about Webster, right? Let's go. That's probably true. I have heard that also.
We're on a quick trip,
Development wise, the Wiswell property.
That's just, you read my mind.
Oh my
That-
gosh! I know
That one got all cleaned up, right?
I've got a headache.
I do have the
So, Wiswell property, it's under contract. I met with the developers today, this morning, wasn't it this morning? Yeah, I met with the developers this morning on it. That's a real tough piece financially wise. So we're working through all that, and I'm very confident that we will extend Webster from 191st into the Wiswell property with the development of the Wiswell property.
Great.
If you recall, up there off of 191st, and now what we're looking at is the southeast corner. That is commercially zoned there with already platted lots. It was part of the crossings. Originally, it was something school industrial or something, but anyway, there's the ownership of that believes that now it's time to, put some funds in it and get that developed. So in conjunction with that, we head down to Wiswell's and another piece that we call the Day 3 property. It's been bought again. Day 3 sold it. But the good thing is that's in conjunction now with Wiswell.
Oh, okay.
Now, Wiswell's hasn't closed yet, but it is going to close, they said, okay? They can't guarantee anything, which is a good thing for us. Because the city, I don't know the exact number. I will get it to you when I get it figured out. But, we're in overall taxes like 750,000 behind, and I think 500,000 is, or 400,000 is cities. So it would be a good amount for the city to recover or recoup. Let me put it that way. And I'd really, also where the Wiswell house sits, and there's about 25 acres in there, maybe 30, through the floodplain area and all. There's discussion with the developer to actually give that to the city for a park. And I thought that also in conjunction with that, and I'm thinking way out, and I don't know if it'll work, maybe we can actually have a park facility building there as well that maybe could be rented out. Maybe we can convert one of the buildings that's there, whatever the case is. I did stop by and look at the buildings, and they're not that bad. You'd be surprised.
Something bigger than the community center.
Right, and it would have to be more of an outdoors type setting where it's just almost like just rain and wind protection, because we can't put a bunch of doors on it because of the construction type. But, I think there's a use for everything there. And in conjunction with that, the developer, there's several of them in the group, but the development company will work with us on building walking trails and all through there.
Great.
So we're trying to get the right direction on that. And then, so then we come on down. Across from Quick Trip, one of the concerns I had about that sewer lift station is right straight across. There's a bunch of wooded area right there, and it has a for sale sign. And I've met with a consulting firm that all they do is they lay all this out, and then they try and get a hotel to go there. So and then I'm sure they charge a fee for getting everything laid out and all that. So I've met with them twice, and I think it'll be a good deal sooner or later. Before you ask about the intersection there, we have been talking to the state, but there's a lot of improvements that Quick Trip has to do there. And then we're now trying to get rescheduled to start 199th going west. So we're trying to get that back on, and I say we, that's in conjunction with the county, that portion. We would like at least to go from 169 to Veterans Lane and get it done. That's our commitment part. We'd like to see that. And I think that would help spur some stuff. Move on down.
Did you say the roundabout is not supposed to be done until what, October or later?
So the roundabout, there's been some discussion that apparently, I don't even know how to put, there was some not well communicated on what it would really was gonna happen there. It was supposed to, before school, open Ridgeview up. This morning, I told everyone that that's what I want done. Now, whether I get that or not, but we'll be real close. That's what we had told, and it doesn't look like it's gonna happen before school. I'm gonna just keep on them until we can get something. Roundabout looks about December now.
I'm a little worried about when school opens here on.
Oh, I'm really
Creek
worried,
Elementary
and we, you know, we have some pretty firm talks here lately.
I just don't know how it's gonna go. I mean, everybody's backed up there on that road. Just 10 minutes, but
Well,
you get
it's
some crazy
still,
high school kids trying to get around there. I don't know.
well, I can guarantee you 199th will be closed,
Right.
but we should be able to get, Ridgeview opened.
Okay.
And then, working on the Ridgeview, the improvements in front of the school, there is a, contract agreement that goes to council next meeting on getting that going. Getting the engineering finished up and get the or the construction documents out for bid. The school, obviously, you've seen it started. There's Oakwoods. They started you remember where, when you first came into Oakwoods, this is behind the Aquatic Center. So when you first came in and there were some apartments and townhome type stuff and all designed in there. But it was still an R2, I think, zoning. Anyway, we worked with Roush Coleman and they're putting single families in there.
Nice.
Instead of, and the neighborhood was happy about it. So, I think, I don't know, we issued another 10 or 12 permits on that. Crossings up there at 191st, they have like 28 building permits, duplexes. So what are you at, 56 doors?
When are they gonna start those?
Well, any day if I'll give them permits. They came in for the permits real quick. The plot plans were incorrect. We went back, but we cannot issue any permits on any subdivision until engineering approves. We get the engineering approval, then we go. They don't have engineering approval yet. So as soon as they get it, we're ready to issue them. I mean, we don't like to just sit there and not collect $200,000.
Yeah.
So excise tax is still going strong. Building permits are still going strong. 188. And I probably have 30 or 10, 15, 20 more due. I don't know. But so we're gonna break 200 here probably this month easily.
191st Street's gonna need some love next year. With all the traffic they're gonna get between all the detour, school traffic.
And that's-
the crossing.
Dirt excavating.
28,
Yep, so that is,
and then the Wiswell.
I know that you guys probably thought we were splitting hairs on this temporary and all. But it's really something that, we're trying to look at, because you're exactly right. 191st right now, we'll start piling all that in. Who's gonna pay for it?
Right.
They're already developing it. There's no money from them, So that's why, I'm really not cracking down, but working with developers to do the best we can on making sure that things are working. 207th, I'm fairly certain, after we start that project, that's gonna be a CARS project. I'm fairly certain that development will come off at 207th. So,
Is the 207th, for lack of another word, blind spot is that being, is that?
Yeah, we have
fully
a,
fixed?
well, we have signs up and, we have temporary blinkers on them. They ordered some nice blinkers for it. And the speed limit most likely will lower again to 25 here before long. I don't remember when the Traffic Safety Committee meeting that's coming up, but we'll most likely make a decision to lower that to 25 because we went to 35. We go out there and check and everyone does just about 41 mile an hour. And so we said, well, if we're gonna really get 35, we're gonna have to go to 25. So that's what we're gonna do. It's a crazy analogy and I don't know why, we can't just slow down. But so yes, we've gotten that and we have some trees up there getting ready to remove on an emergency order because they're dead and some limbs are falling out into it. So it's not a lot of money, but we need to get them out of
I
there.
see that being a potential hazard over there, though. I mean,
Oh, it will be. I mean, we're gonna get those improvements in there and all, but, overall, people are just gonna have to slow down. I mean, some of these neighborhoods I'm sitting in watching, it's like, wow, so we're working on that too.
Have you seen any movement on the southwest corner of 191st and Ridgeview, right there by the new middle
Yes.
school? And because I know we had the early childhood center for a while there, and then there was that site plan application.
Right,
the seat
so,
floor and the
yes.
childhood.
right. I talked to Ron Mathers as the owner, or was going to be the developer of that. And he's working with the owner again to come back in and develop. I am trying to convince another convenience store that's in our community already, that would be a great location. To build a real nice one there, just so far, no luck, but I'd like to have one of their models that they've used in Gardner. I think it'd be nice, so,
Really
but.
nice Aldi's that would fit in right there.
Well, so it's funny you say that, Aldi's has this new branding and a little bigger store and a little more aisle width and this and that. I actually went to Emporia and looked at one and they are looking in the area. They're cautious because Hy-Vee now is coming out with a community store or a hometown store or something. It's a lot smaller version but they're test running it in a few places and see how it goes.
Aldi on 159th and Metcalf, right by Walmart. It's on more of a residential scale. It doesn't feel like
Right.
a big grocery store. It's
Right.
like very community oriented.
That'd be a perfect one there on that corner.
Yeah, and across from Prairie Ridge up there where all that commercial and, we turned down the townhomes or whatever they were trying to do there. We've talked to several commercial people about that area.
Good.
Are they gonna fix 199th?
Well, there's several problems with that area. One is, and the truth of the matter is, a lot of them are shying away because they know they're gonna get protests from Prairie Ridge. You can't please everybody, so, but they're still looking at that on, that's one of the sites that they're looking at.
Oh, cause it had to be rezoned and.
No, it doesn't have to be rezoned, but the site plan, right, and 199's a big issue, and, I mean, my land's, right now it's not, obviously, because of the roundabout deal, but, the truck traffic, just a lot of truck traffic, Then we go on out at, is that Feather Ridge? What is that called out there?
There's Feather Ridge or Summerhill.
What's the new one? Summerhill Acres? Okay, so we had Summerhill Acres just did a final plat, put in 20 lots or something, and one developer bought them all. So they're permitting all of them.
Where's that?
That is behind Feather Ridge. It would be Woodland. And like 225th
Okay.
down in that area, 227th. So,
Oh, back there, yeah.
yeah, back there, behind Price Chopper
Yeah.
to the east. So though, that's an increase. So while most,
But that finishes that one.
it does finish that one, yes, that, there is another strip in there that's still there. Remember they started with the like Victorian homes or
Oh,
something?
yeah.
And there's still a few lots in there, but not many. So in looking at that though, you can see now we have to start concentrating south also. Because across the street, east of Woodland, there's like 25-acre piece right there. The sewer runs right down the middle. You know, they're working on a development for that right now. So we're having to look at more than just north now. We're also looking south, and south has the same problems as north, you know, streets and infrastructure and things like that. Sweetwater's doing their next phase. So I'm sure I'm missing something, but we're, you know, it's just, there's a lot going on. And there's gonna be a lot of, you know, pressures for streets and things like that.
All right. Is that about it?
I hope so.
Because I want you to get to bed before 1 a.m., okay?
Oh, yeah,
You work long hours.
a lot of those guys like me to email them at 10, 11. Sometimes I do it just to irritate them.
All right, I think we just need a motion to adjourn unless there's any announcements from.
Motion to adjourn to let Mr. Burton go to bed.
Okay, motion's been second to adjourn, start the voting on the left.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. I just want to say that, you know, there's a lot of staff doing a lot of different things now. So if you see staff, you might say, hey, thanks, you know, or whatever.
Yourself included.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
that's,
you.